Hi, this is Carl from Small Biz Thoughts, and this is another SOP video for managed service providers. Today I want to talk about documenting client backups. You know, backups are a very interesting thing. I would say that almost exactly 50% of the clients we've ever had a working backup on the day that we showed up to analyze their system. Now, many of them thought they had a backup, many had paid for a backup, many had a backup that used to work really, really well. It just doesn't work anymore. And so, you know, the other half had a working backup that for whatever reason hadn't failed yet. But backups need constant maintenance. The other thing that I note time and time again, and this is probably more like 99% of clients, have no documentation, and in particular, no documentation of their backup system. Now, I know you've been there. You get a brand new client, there's no documentation. One of the things you have to do, maybe even the most important thing you have to do with a new client, is to verify that they have a working backup, right? So you have to first train yourself to figure out what is their backup. And today, that's a lot more complicated than it used to be. It used to be you fish around the office until you find the backup system, which was either a tape or a backup to disk system. Generally, they had a server or two. One was the most important server. That one probably had the backup program running on the server. So it might have been a SonicWall CDP, or it might have been a Datto BDR, right? But there's always some clues, and you have to go do the detective work and figure out what they have. Ultimately, you have to go do detective work to figure out what they've got and what are the stages of the process. One of the things I highly encourage you to do is to literally write up 2 paragraphs in plain text, and it might be 5 paragraphs, but 2 to 5 paragraphs in plain text and drop it on the server in the place where you keep all of your notes. For us, that's C:BangTech. But wherever it is where you put all of your notes about everything you do, let's just say that another technician has to come into this client's office tomorrow and figure out the backup. There should be a text file, so they don't have to have any special program to run it. They literally open it in Notepad, and it says, every night, this robocopy job copies this database over to the X drive on the server, and then every night, the server is copied to this offsite storage, or it's moved to backup, or it's moved from disk to tape. Whatever it is, it's written down. And that's the important part. Don't make somebody's job more difficult, even your own technicians. Very frequently, it used to be the case that we would work with strangers, which means we would go in, do a job, and be gone. And because they didn't sign a contract back in the day, we might come back a year later and need to fix something, but if we haven't documented where the backup is, we have to actually bill them for time to figure out where the backup is, even though we set it up. Right? At the end of the day, that backup documentation has to exist somewhere that's easy to find. It's almost like, you know, if you're going to have an important document, you can't hide it, right? So the bottom line is, this is a perfect example of something that you don't want to make it hard to find. You want to make it easy and obvious. It's almost like we used to have these files called readmefirst.txt. Right? So you'd download software and you'd go look for the readmefirst.txt file. And that was a way for you to say, okay, I know exactly the first thing I do is read the readme file, and then all is good. By the way, my newsletter for my clients for 15 years was called readme.txt. Now, this is not a client-facing document. For the most part, a client is going to get the 10,000-foot view that, oh, we run some scripts for something, and then we copy it to the BDR, and then it gets imaged to the cloud. Oh, you know, they have some vague understanding of what that means, but you or another technician will be able to focus in very quickly on exactly what's going on. You may not know the specific BDR, or they may have changed brand names or whatever, but the bottom line is you can figure it out. And you just need to have a little help so that you can figure it out sooner rather than later. So this is one of these long-term things. It's absolutely worth doing. Nobody likes to think about getting hit by a bus, but people do get hit by buses. So make sure it's easy for people to find this data when you're gone. For Small Biz Thoughts, this is Carl Polachuk wishing you the best of luck in your managed service business. Here's your checklist for this video. Like, subscribe, share it with your friends, ring that bell to make sure you don't miss anything, and visit us at sopforsmb.com.